I'd like to comment on that for just a second. First, for those of you who try to make an attempt of comparing the evidences that are around for the Bible to the Book of Mormon, you're just being asinine. You're just being ridiculous when you think about it. Okay? The Bible is supported by archaeological, it's supported by linguistic, it's supported by genetic, it's supported by cultural evidences. The Bible has viable manuscript evidences for it. The Bible has places that you can visit. Imagine that. You can walk along the Sea of Galilee. You can see different villages. It's just amazing that something like that could exist. And there's entire people groups that base their entire religion off the Bible that are still there. We have the Babylonians. We have the Chaldeans, sort of. We have the Jews. We have Christians. We have Islam. All base something off the Bible. So you don't want to take all the biblical utterances that have come from the Bible and that have been proven through the Bible over time and all those evidences and compare them to the Book of Mormon, which has none. None. Blows my mind. It's the classic con man chutzpah because he throws it in here. It's amazing. What he does is he includes his own name in the Book of Mormon. And he says that Joseph of Egypt, remember Joseph who was sold into Egypt by his brother, has a revelation that the truths are going to be brought back by a guy named Joseph whose father's name is Joseph. And Mormons believe that this is Joseph Smith, and this revelation was given to Lehi, a Book of Mormon character, and he's telling his son about this, and that this Joseph, who has a father named Joseph, is going to come forward hundreds and hundreds of years later, and he's going to restore these truths to the earth. I mean, that would be like Tyndale, including his name in the book of John, you know? And the Lord, he walked on water, and then he looked around and said, so someone named Tyndale is going to come forward and bring forth the Bible. I mean, that's exactly what the parallel is here, and we believe it. Latter-day Saints believe that this Joseph was mentioned of 2,600 years before he ever came to earth by Joseph in Egypt. I mean, it is the chutzpah, the boldness is amazing, and yet people buy it. In 2 Nephi chapter 3, if you're interested, you can read about how Joseph, who was in Egypt, told about Joseph coming forward and that he would be named after his father, who was Joseph too. Because the Catholic Church removed the many precious things from the Bible, causing a great many, according to the Book of Mormon, to stumble, and placing them, quote, in the power of Satan, God would raise a choice seer up, and Joseph Smith calls himself a choice seer in the Book of Mormon, and who would restore these plain and precious truths by placing them in the Book of Mormon. The important thing is, though, what plain and precious things are in the Book of Mormon that were restored to the church that are not in the Bible. And they are very few and far between. They answer many of the questions that were going on about the return of Christ, some eschatology. The Book of Mormon talks a little bit about the age of baptism for children. But let me tell you this. The Book of Mormon does not restore any of these plain and precious truths that Mormons believe today. The Book of Mormon does not talk about temples, temple endowments, I mean. Eternal marriage or baptisms for the dead. It doesn't talk about the garden as a dual place of atonement with the cross. It doesn't talk about 3 degrees of glory. It doesn't talk about a mother in heaven. It doesn't talk about man becoming God or God having been a man. It doesn't talk about Aaronic or Melchizedek priesthood. It doesn't talk about the God having that God has a physical body. It doesn't talk about the conception of Jesus. It doesn't talk about the plurality of gods, the word of wisdom, polygamy, except to denounce it. It doesn't talk about a premortal life, except there's one subtle reference to it that some LDS claim. It doesn't talk about blood atonement. It doesn't talk about the nature of Satan or angels. It doesn't talk about polytheism. It is a Christian book borrowing from the Christian themes of the 19th century, as well as the other themes going on, and put out to you as it was translated from golden plates. It wasn't just the words, but and the falling on the ground, but they clapped their hands in the Book of Mormon. I mean, I just don't see that occurring in an ancient civilization. I don't see a revival like that occurring. Maybe I'm jaded and wrong, but this is something to include in your repertoire of if the Book of Mormon is true or if it was borrowed from a variety of other places. Do you want more? If you want more, go to our website and you can look up the show notes under this show and you can click them on. It's a Word document. It will come up as a PDF. You can download them and it will give you a whole list of other things that show the 4 phases that are present in the Book of Mormon, all through of the people coming to a gathering, the people being harrowed up in their sins, King Lamoni's son, falling to the ground. King Lamoni did, and so did the people of Alma, so did the people in many other places in the Book of Mormon, and then confessing their sin, and then feeling this redeeming joy of love and the chains of death and hell being broken from them in the Book of Mormon. Go to the notes at www.bornagainmormon.com. In the Book of Mormon, it says the mysteries of God. In the New Testament, the mysteries of God. Being grieved because of the hardness of their hearts. Being grieved because of the hardness of their hearts. I know of a surety that the Lord hath. I know of a surety that the Lord hath. 1 Nephi 7:11, back 600 years before Christ. Nephi says, great things the Lord hath done for us. Mark says, great things the Lord hath done for thee. The natural branches are in 1 Nephi. The natural branches are in Romans. Should be grafted in is in Romans. Should be grafted in is in 1 Nephi, 600 years before. We go on, all those who seek diligently seek him. Of them that seek diligently seek him. The same yesterday, today, and forever. The same yesterday, today, and forever. If you read the Greek of the same yesterday, today, and forever, it would not read that way. And yet it's in the Book of Mormon as though that was what these ancient prophets were saying. It's a complete indictment. It's a complete indictment on the historicity and on the strength of the Book of Mormon. Complete. And if you continue to take that book and believe it was translated from golden plates in light of evidence like this, you just have to want to believe something that is not true because it fits your lifestyle, because it makes you feel comfortable with your family. You have to be putting blinders on right now. In addition to the hundreds of anachronistic phrases that have been taken from the Bible and placed in the Book of Mormon, Joseph also took 5 full chapters right out of the biblical record and stuck them in the book. By the way, some of those chapters have errors in them. When they translated the Bible back in 1611, and King James guys did it, they did a good job, but there were some things. And as scholars have gotten older manuscripts, they've gone and seen, wait, this word wasn't right. Now, the Book of Mormon contains the King James Version errors that later scholars have said these errors are clarified by older documents. Okay, how much more do you want? The phrase "he stinketh" appears once in the Bible and once in the Book of Mormon. The words "he stinketh" and "he sleepeth" are found together only in these 2 chapters. The 7-word phrase, "Believest thou this?" she said unto him, appears only in John and only in Alma. Here is a question for you. Were these phrases on golden plates written anciently by Nephites, or were they taken from another source, like everything else we've showed you this past 5 or 6 weeks? You know the answer, but are you willing to let it germinate in your head and heart? What 2 things do the following words have in common? Alpha, Angola, Antipas, Archeantus, Ezeus, Jonas, Judea, Omega, Timothy, and Zenos. What do those 2 things have in common with all those names? The answer, first, all of them are found in the Book of Mormon. Every one of those names. Second, they're all Greek names. Every one of them, Timothy, Zenos. And remember from last week, we have the Greek civilization out here, and we have the Book of Mormon over here in time. And in between, we have 1,000 years. And we suddenly were having Greek names appear in this book that was supposed to have been written on gold plates this many years before. It's an impossibility. I want to read to you what B.H. Roberts said about the comparisons of the View of the Hebrews and the Book of Mormon, all right? Now just listen. We're putting this on record so you can watch this later in the series about the Book of Mormon. The View of the Hebrew not only suggests but pleads on every page for Israelitish origin of the American Indians, all right? It deals with the destruction of Jerusalem and the scattering of Israel, as does the Book of Mormon. The View of the Hebrew deals with the future gathering of Israel and the restoration of the 10 tribes, as does the Book of Mormon. It emphasizes and uses much of the material from the prophecies of Isaiah, including whole chapters, as does the Book of Mormon. The view of the Hebrews holds that the peopling of the New World, America, was by migrations from the Old World. So does the Book of Mormon. 5 years before the Book of Mormon ever came out, I remind you. In both cases, the journeys of these peoples was northward. In both cases, the colonies entered into a valley with a great river. They both encountered seas of many waters, and in the course of their journey, they crossed them. In both cases, the journey was a long one. The motive in both cases was religious. Are you seeing the theme and framework of the Book of Mormon coming about when Oliver Cowdery could have shared the view of the Hebrews with his cousin Joseph on how to construct and make this book up? Two classes of people. The view of the Hebrews supposes that his lost tribes divide into two classes. The one fostering the arts and of civilization. So we have a class that was very civilized and artistic and prosperous and industrious. And the other followed wild hunting and indolent life that ultimately led to barbarism. This is exactly what happens in the theme of the Book of Mormon. Long and dismal wars break out in the view of the Hebrews between the barbarous division and the civilized divisions. The same occurs between the Nephite and Lamanite divisions, and they're drawn there in the Book of Mormon between civilized and barbarous. The savage division of the view of the Hebrews utterly exterminates the civilized. The Lamanites in the Book of Mormon utterly exterminate the civilized there. Same themes. The view of the Hebrews book assumes that an ancient civilized people grew in the mechanic arts, in language, in knowledge of iron and other metals. They also grew in their abilities in navigation. The Book of Mormon also assigns these characteristics to the civilized Nephites. The view of the Hebrews assumes that this race occupied the whole extent of the American continent. The Book of Mormon does the same for its peoples. Church history and church leaders have always given Mormons the idea that the whole continent was covered by this nation of Israelites who had turned into the Nephites. Now they don't. Now they've pulled back from that and they've changed it, but it used to be that way. It also assumes that the Indian tongue had one language, Hebrew. This is the book of the view of the Hebrews. Book of Mormon, the same thing. This is a really good one. Listen to this. The view of the Hebrews describes an instrument around the mound findings that comprised of a breastplate with two white buckhorn buttons attached, quote, in imitation of the precious stones of the Urim. All right? Before the Book of Mormon ever came out, the view of the Hebrews said there was a breastplate with this Urim that it would help to translate the plates. The same thing Joseph Smith claimed was in the box with the golden plates to help him translate. What more do you need? I mean, it's almost like I should get 1,000 emails now saying, okay, I'm convinced. What do I do? But we don't. We can continue to get people defending. How can you defend this stuff? View of the Hebrews describes extensive military fortifications linking cities in the Ohio and Mississippi Valley, and they had watchtowers that overlooked the areas. The Book of Mormon, the people erected watchtowers too. Those very words, overlooking. The Book of Mormon describes high places where people would go up to worship. The view of the Hebrews has high places where people would go and worship in their religious ceremonies. Again, another one. And in their government, the ancient inhabitants effected change going from a monarchy type of government to a republic. The same thing happens in the Book of Mormon. All right? And finally, the view of the Hebrews speaks of the gospel having been preached in the ancient Americas. The Book of Mormon teaches of the gospel having been preached in the ancient Americas. The only difference is that in the view of the Hebrews, Quetzalcoatl is the central figure that comes, and in the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith made it better, having Jesus Christ himself come and share with the ancient inhabitants the gospel of Jesus Christ.